All right. Shalom, shalom. Back out here again, prophesying against this wicked ass queendom. Not a kingdom, but a queendom. Today's lesson is going to be about, I think it's All About YAHAWASHI part 10 or part 11. Can't remember on what part I'm on, but it's just a series about All About YAHAWASHI, how important he is, praising his name, promoting YAHAWASHI, and it's just more so how, we should be trusting in YAHAWASHI more than ever. It's inevitable in these times because right now, the Lord is setting the stage, for everything to be taken away, right? We got the food shortages, coming about, how they had the fires in Nebraska, storehouses about to be closing. You got all these different Fortune 500 companies, these food chain and store chain supplies, closing. We got the war in Iran and Israel and America. America's still trying to act like they big and bad, boasting, saying they're gonna take over Cuba still, and America want to talk about peace treaties with Iran, but in reality, Iran said America talking peace treaties, but slowly plotting, ground invasion, right? So they can't be trusted. What does it say? His words are smoother than butter, but war is in his heart. That's Esau, man. You can't trust nothing this man say. And even they say sell peace to save it, is suddenly destruction, roughly paraphrasing. That's Esau, man. But before I get too far, I want to give all praise, honor, glory to Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahawashi, Bahashim, Rakakwadash. All praise and double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone who brought out this truth many, many years ago. And still to this day preaching this truth. I want to say shalom to all the true believers, the men and the women that's learning, teaching, and seeking the Lord out with all sincerity and due diligence. Shalom. But back to what I was saying, how believing in Yahawashi, is inevitable right now, man, because of everything that's going on. The gas prices going up, the storehouses are closing, food shortages, water shortages. Eventually, all these comforts here in America is gonna get taken away, right? So let's grab this precept real quick. We're gonna go to the book of Isaiah chapter 3 verse 1, and that says right here, it says Isaiah chapter 3 verse 1 out of NLT, and it says, the Lord, the Adonai Yahweh's heaven armies will take away from Jerusalem and Judah, the northern and the southern kingdom, every bit of bread, every drop of water. All their heroes and soldiers, judges and prophets, fortune tellers and elders, army officers and officials, advisors, skilled craftsmen, astrologers. I will make boys their leaders and toddlers their rulers. You see that? So it's going to come to a time where the Lord is going to take away the staff of bread and the staff of water and all our comforts and everything that this place trusts in, everything that everybody trusts in. Because people trusting in Donald Trump, but Trump, just put a limit, raised the limit on, getting on the draft in America from the ages 34 and 42. So now people old as your damn daddy, can join the army. But most men that from ages 34 to 42 are completely out of shape and completely, in low vibration, man. You know what I'm saying? So America is doomed. You finna have all these men with dad bods fighting for this country, man. But he just raised, like I said, he raised the limit for the army to 34 years old to 42 years old, man. America's doomed. This place is about to get destroyed. They have no chance standing against Iran, China, Russia. They don't stand a chance, man. That's why you see Iran right now is destroying this place by itself, damn near, and fucking Israel right now, right? Just imagine when Russia, China, North Korea, and all them join in to team up together as an alliance to destroy America. Right? So let's continue. But that's what I'm saying. Trusting in Yahawashi is at an all-time high right now. So let's grab this precept real quick. Right here out of the KJV, Isaiah 65 and 13. And it says, therefore saith the Adonai Yahweh, behold, my servant shall eat, but you shall be hungry. Behold, my servant shall drink, but you shall be thirsty. Behold, my servant shall rejoice, but you will be ashamed. So the ones that have this knowledge, wisdom, and understanding that the Lord has chosen, that's trusting in Yahawashi, we're going to have that hedge of protection during Jacob's trouble. So when all your comforts get taken away, the gas prices still going up, when your food supply start drying up, the water supply start drying up, the hospital, the medical supply start drying up, you know what I'm saying? If you don't have Yahawashi, you're going to get caught in that trouble, man, which is Jacob's trouble. Now, we all going to go through that affliction, but the chosen ones that the Lord has chosen, we're going to have a hedge of protection. Right? And that's the ones who trust in Yahawashi, first and foremost, the ones that he trusted, his elect. right? Right here, 14. Behold, my servant shall sing for joy of heart, but you shall carry for sorrow of heart, and shall howl and vex in the spirit. And you shall leave your name for a curse unto my chosen. For the About Yahawah shall slay thee, and call his servants by another name. You see that? So we're going to have that hedge of protection through YAHAWASHI, right? That's why I'm saying trusting in him right now is at an all-time high. Because once these people's comforts gets taken away, you know, the gas is completely gone, and the gas is so high that people can't afford it. Because right now, people still thinking that, oh, okay, well, the gas going up, you know, it's going to go back up, you know, it's going to go back down eventually. But America being in this war with Iran, it's going to keep going up, man, because, you know, they're over there in the Middle East, they're hitting the oil ranks, you know what I'm saying? I know over there in Hamas, they got a canal that they got blocked off, that you got to pay $2 million to get through, you know, to where they won't even let some of the, you know, some of the oil and everything else pass through. You know, even Trump just passed a bill where over 200,000 immigrants, you know what I'm saying, just lost their CDL license. So a lot of these things with the truckers and everything like that, when you got their CDLs, man, that's stopping the food supply. You know what I'm saying? So, hey, man, if you don't have that hedge of protection of YAHAWASHI, your ass is going to get destroyed, man, and you're going to get caught up in this trouble, you know? So that's why, like I said, trusting in YAHAWASHI is more inevitable than ever before. Right, so now we're going to get into the lesson. We're going to get to Hebrews chapter 9. We're going to start at verse 1. And again, this is all about YAHAWASHI, part 10 or part 11. All right, so let's start off with verse 1. We're going to go through 1 through 4. Right here it says, worship the early tabernacle. Now this is when, you know, the old covenant was established. But then that's why, you know, the Lord sent YAHAWASHI to bring in that new covenant. Yahweh had to scrap the old covenant and bring in YAHAWASHI, which he, you know, he's going to bring in the new covenant. Right now we're going through a grace period, and so we're going to break this down real quick. 1 through 4, and it says, now the first covenant had regulations for worship, and also an earthly sanctuary. Right? Verse 2, a tabernacle was set up. In its first room were a lampstand, the table, the consecrated bread. This was called the holy place. Behind the second curtain was a room called the most holy place, which had the golden altar of incense and the golden cover ark of the covenant. This ark contained the gold jar of manna, Aaron's staff budded, and the stone tablets of the covenant. You see? So all this was at the beginning, you know, what it was saying, you know, the golden altar of incense, the ark, the covenant, that's symbolizing the, you know, the temporary separation between Yahweh and humanity before he made YAHAWASHI the ultimate sacrifice. Right? Because like I said, at a time, you know, Jake was abusing the sacrifice. You know what I'm saying? He was manipulating the system. And we're going to get into that too. So let's continue on 5 through verse 9. Now we at verse 5, Hebrews chapter 9, verse 5. And it says, above the ark were a cherubim of the glory, overshadowing the atonement cover, but we cannot discuss these new things in detail now. Verse 6, it says, it's like, Verse 6, it says, when everything had been arranged like this, the priests enter regularly into the outer room to carry on their ministry. But only the high priest entered the inner room, and that only once a year, and never without blood, which he offered for himself for his sins, the people committed in ignorance. See? Let's continue. The Holy Spirit was showing by this that the way into the most holy place had not yet been disclosed as long as the first tabernacle was still standing. That's that, you know what I'm saying, that's when the laws was established. And anybody that's telling you, you know, they keeping all the laws, you know, they a goddamn lie, man. It's impossible to keep all the laws. We in the flesh. We go off every day, unintentionally, and all kinds of things, man. Right? Verse 9. This is an illustration for the present time, indicating that the gifts and sacrifice being offered were not able to clear conscience of the worshiper. You see that? So the first sacrifices that we did was not able to clear our conscience. Why? Because Jake was manipulating the system. Right? The old way of cleansing our conscience of the people, you know, it wasn't working. You know what I'm saying? They used it as a way to sin regularly. Right? Just doing anything like, all right, well, hey, you know, we finna go out here and sin real quick, but all we gotta do is make a sacrifice. And when they did make a sacrifice, they gave it like a half-ass sacrifice to the Lord. Like for example, when these people come out here today, you know, they got one foot in and one foot out. Or they're not coming out here preaching 100% truth. Or they're not coming out here preaching the true names of Yahweh and YAHAWASHI. Right? You know, so like I said, they cheated the system, and it was like a form of a manipulation tactic. You know what I'm saying? And that's Jake is good at doing that, right? So like I said, they was bringing crippled lambs and blind sheep, you know, just a half-ass sacrifice and present it to the Lord and just expect Him for forgiveness. But no, that's why the Lord He scrapped that old covenant and brought in the new covenant, which is YAHAWASHI, which He's bringing right now, the grace period, and we're not gonna get the new covenant until we get into the kingdom, right? So, and that was us, man, at that time. You know, that was us having that stony heart, right? So that's why when we get into the kingdom with YAHAWASHI, you know, when we get into that new covenant, when we get with YAHAWASHI and our bodies being changed, we can have a fleshly heart, because a stony heart can't be penetrated. You know, Jake was hard-headed. They thought they could just do what the fuck they wanted. That's why they was manipulating the system. But see, when you have a fleshly heart, it can be penetrated, man. That's why, like, when a man inserts into a woman, you know, he has sex with a woman, he's penetrating the flesh. You see, so when you have a stony heart, the Lord is not able to get to you, because the stony heart is a stubborn heart, man. So let's grab a precept proving about the stony heart, that when YAHAWASHI comes, He's going to cleanse everything and gives us that new heart. Isaiah, that's not it right here. This is a different precept for the first part, for verse 9. Isaiah 1:11 through 14. NLT, it says, "What makes you think I want all of your sacrifices, says Adonai Yahweh. I am sick of your burnt offerings and rams and the fat of the fattened cattle. I get no pleasure from the blood of bulls and lambs and goats. When you come to worship me, you ask you to parade through my courts with all your ceremony. Stop bringing me your meaningless gifts." You see, because they was doing it all in vain, man. Right? It was meaningless to them because they was giving a half-ass sacrifice to the Lord. "The incense of your offering disgusts me. As for your celebrations of the new moon and the Sabbath day, your special days of fasting, special days of fasting, they are all sinful and false. I want no more of your pious meetings. I hate your new moon celebrations and your annual festivals. They are a burden to me. I cannot stand them." See, so manipulating the system gave them a leeway to sin regularly, man, like I said earlier. So the Lord got rid of the old covenant, you know, and Jake, because Jake was doing what the hell they wanted, right? So let's grab a precept also for that stony heart that YAHAWASHI is going to bring when we get into that new covenant. Ezekiel 36:25-27, NLT, verse 25. Then I will sprinkle clean water on you. You see, we get that spiritual cleansing through YAHAWASHI by trusting and believing in YAHAWASHI. Not that bathtub dirty water in them churches, man. You know what I'm saying? We get the true cleansing, that spiritual refreshment through YAHAWASHI. You know, because everything's going to be changed. Our old way of thinking, our old way of acting, our old spirit is going to be cleansed through the spirit of YAHAWASHI. And you will be clean. And your filth will be washed away. You will no longer worship idols. So when we get into that new covenant, we're going to be in our right minds. You know, we're not going to be worshiping all these false gods. You know, we're not going to be believing all these lies and philosophies that Esau has set up in front of us today to dumb us down and to keep us away from our power. And he says right here, verse 26, "Here's the point: I will give you a new heart, and I will put a new spirit in you, and I will take out your stony, stubborn heart, and give you a tender, responsive heart." So if you look up that word stony heart, it represents cruel, stubbornness, resistance to Yahweh. You see that? We were hard-headed. We didn't, you know what I'm saying? We didn't want to listen, didn't want to hearken, often hardened by sin or disappointment. See that? That was Jake. That was us before we came into this truth. But still today, that's the 2/3 niggas. They have something what you would call a stony heart. You know, and even us, you know, even though we turn back and the Lord has chosen us to come out of this way, we still fall back into some of our old ways. That's why we need YAHAWASHI to be completely cleansed. Even though, you know, you got baptized in the churches, you still sin every day. You know, them motherfucking Christians want to turn up Monday through Saturday and then on Sundays be right for one day. And that's not how this shit goes, man. Right? You gotta act the same way how you live on camera and off camera. You gotta practice what you preach. Right? So let's continue on verse 27. "And I will put my spirit in you so that you will follow my decrees, which is the laws, and be careful to obey my regulations." Right? So when YAHAWASHI comes, you know, right now, because like I said, we going through a grace period. But when YAHAWASHI comes, that's when we begin that new covenant. When we get beat up in the chairs, it's going to be an instant change, an instant mindset change, an instant spirit change, all of that, man. Right? So let's continue. We'll go to verse 10. Ah, damn. It's wind, boy. All right. Verse 10. Oh, man. Oh, verse 10, it says, they are only a matter of food and drink and various ceremonial washing, it says external regulations applying it to the time of the new order. With that new order, that's that new sacrifice, which is About YAHAWASHI. Right? Verse 11. Where's my, yep, verse 11. It says, when right here at the beginning, it says the blood of Hamashiach. Verse 11, it says, when Hamashiach came as a high priest of the good things that are already here, he went through the greater and more perfect tabernacle that is not man-made. This is to say, not part of this creation. He did not enter by the means of the blood of goats and calves, but he entered the most holy place once and for all by his own blood, having obedient eternal redemption. See Yahawashi, he didn't have to go through the goats and the lambs and all the different things, because he made his body, he made himself a living sacrifice, right? So we could have another chance to see Yahawashi wasn't defiled, it wasn't defiled or contaminated by the old system. You know what I'm saying? He was a pure form by the Father, Yahweh. You know what I'm saying? He the one that got that power seat. And how did he get that power seat? By making his body a living sacrifice. He went through the afflictions. You know what I'm saying? So all the other high priests that came before him, they came and tried to do what he did, but they died and they didn't get the power seat. See, Yahawashi, when he went through his affliction, he made his body a living sacrifice. He got the keys to the power seat, man. Right? Now let's grab a precept in verse 11, Hebrews chapter 2, verses 16 through 18 out of NLT. And he says, I was looking at the time. And he says, 16, we also know that the Son did not come to help angels. He came to help the descendants of Abraham. That's the Israelites. See, not the whole world. You know, because all these different nations, if you read, I think 2nd Esdras 56, 6 and 56, or 56 and 6, I think it's vice versa. I think it's 6 and 56. I could be wrong. I had to go back and check it. It's telling you that he didn't choose everybody from the seed of Abraham. Even though we all came from Adam, he only had a chosen people, which came out of the Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And it says, therefore it was necessary for him to be made in every respect like us, his brothers and sisters, so that he could be our merciful and faithful high priest before God. You know, see, Yahawashi was Melchizedek. It says, then he could offer a sacrifice. That could take away sins of the people, which is the Israelites. Since he himself has gone through suffering and testing, he is able to help us when we are being tested. So Yahawashi laid out the blueprint. You know, he gave us a way to follow. And how did he do it? Through obedience, right? And that's why we have this grace period through Yahawashi. You know, we got people even still going off, calling on the names of Yahawashi, but claiming we're in a new covenant. That's how you know they lack faith and lack understanding. It's no way in hell we could be in a new covenant, because a lot of us still have, all of us pretty much still have that stony heart. A lot of us are still stubborn when it comes to certain things, man. You know, even if you is in this truth, we in the flesh. So yes, we go off, right? So those of you preaching that we in a new covenant right now, you know what I'm saying? Y'all wrong, man. And again, a precept of verse 12, Hebrews chapter 7, verse 26 through 28. And it says, again, let's read 12 again real quick before you grab a precept. Verse 12, and it says, he did not enter by the means of blood and goats and calves, but he entered the most holy place once and for all by his own blood, having obtained the eternal redemption. You see? So a precept for verse 12 is Hebrews 7, 26 and 28. It says, he is the kind of high priest we need because he is the holy and blameless, unstained by sin. So again, like I said, he wasn't tainted or he wasn't defiled by the old laws, by the old covenant, right? He has set apart from sinners and has been given the highest place of honor in heaven. Like I said, he got the keys to the power seat. He next man up. That's why the Lord is sending him back in the fury of his anger, right? Verse 27, unlike those other high priests, he did not need to offer sacrifices every day because he was the sacrifice. They did this for their own sins first, then for the sins of let's read 27 again. Unlike the other high priests, he did not need to offer sacrifices every day. They did this for their own sins first, and then the sins of the people. But Yahawashi did this once and for all when he offered himself as a sacrifice for the people's sins. And when we talk about the people, he's not talking about the whole earth, man. He's talking about the nation of Israel. But Yahawashi did this once and for all when he offered himself as a sacrifice for people's sins. Verse 28. The law-appointed high priests were limited by human weakness. You see that? So they were limited because they didn't have Yahweh to have their back. You know what I'm saying? Yahawashi was next man up. He was that ultimate high priest in the order of Melchizedek. You know what I'm saying? And the Lord chose him to the Lord chose him to be that living sacrifice, his only begotten son, man, to come in the nation of Israel. So he, Yahawashi wasn't made by the human weakness. He came through the power of his Father. But after the laws was given, Yahweh appointed his son with an oath. And his son has been made perfect, been made the perfect high priest forever. That's why we say he was Melchizedek, because Melchizedek was the high priest. Right? The high priest that they even said had no lineage. They didn't know his father, they didn't know his mother. But hey man, that's Yahawashi. All right, let's continue on 13. And it says, the blood of goats and bulls. Now we got the book of Hebrews chapter 9 verse 13. It says, the blood of goats and bulls, the ashes of the heifer, sprinkle on those who are ceremonially unclean, sanctify them so that they were outwardly clean. How much more then will the blood of Hamashiach, who went through eternal spirit, offer himself unblemished to Yahweh, cleanse our conscience from acts that led to death, so that we may serve the living power. You see that? So Yahawashi is the one that cleansed our conscience, not the old laws. It was Yahawashi. Not the laws and not the old covenant, but Yahawashi, who's going to bring in that new covenant. He didn't need everything that the other priest needed, because he was chosen by his Father. He was the chosen one. Because the laws, everybody want to say we're living by the laws, but living by the laws can't justify you. Right? You can't justify you at all, man. So let's go back to verse 14. We're going to read 13 to 14. Let's read 14 again. Hebrews chapter 9, verse 14. How much more then will the blood of Hamashiach, who through the eternal spirit offer himself unblemished to Yahweh, cleanse our conscience from the acts that led to death, so that we may serve the living power. You see that? So Yahawashi gave us another chance through the grace period. Because back in the day, the Lord was putting people to death on spot. Right? Let's grab this right here for a precept for verse 14, Galatians 3 and 10 through 13, and in 10 it says, but those who depend on the law to make them right with Yahweh are under his curse. For the scripture says, curses everyone who does not observe and obey all the commandments that are written in Yahweh's book of law. So it is clear that no one can be made right with Yahweh by keeping the law. See, so all these guys that saying they're keeping the laws and living by the laws and they're keeping all the laws, man, that you can't, that the laws can't justify you, right? Because like I said, we in the flesh, man. So let's continue. Verse 12, Galatians chapter 3, verse 10 through 13. Verse 12, it says, this is the way of faith. This way of faith is very different from the way of law, which it says, it is through obeying the law that a person has life. But Hamashiach has rescued us from the curse pronounced by the law. While he himself was hung on the cross, he took upon himself the curse for our wrongdoing. For it is written in the scriptures, curse everyone who is hung on a tree. You see that? So Yahawashi has made his body a living sacrifice and saved us from the law. You know what I'm saying? Saved us from being put to death and saved us from the sin, man. Because like I said, we're going through this grace period. Right? Because like I said, back in the day, the Lord was putting people to death on spot. Even in the situation with King David. King David should have been put to death. You know what I'm saying? Because King David had with Bathsheba, he put her husband on the front line. And then he took another man's wife and committed adultery. You see that? So let's go to 1 Peter chapter 3. Another precept, 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 17 through 18. It says, remember, it is better to suffer for doing good. If that what Yahweh wants, that to suffer for doing wrong. Hamashiach suffered for our sins once and for all time. He never sinned, but he died for the sinners to bring you safely home to Yahweh, and that's to the kingdom. We go to the kingdom through Yahawashi. We go to the Father through Yahawashi. Everything goes through Yahawashi. Nothing can go. You can't get to the Father, get to the kingdom through anybody else. You can't get through there with Jehovah. You can't get through there through Yahweh, Jesus Christ. None of that, man. If you don't have Yahawashi as your foundation will crumble. Right? So let's continue. He never sinned, but he died for the sinners to bring you safely home to Yahweh. He suffered physical death, but he was raised to life in the spirit. You see that? So Yahawashi took the blunt force trauma so we can have another chance at this, so we can go through this grace period and get it right. Right? So let's continue. Verse 15. We already read 14. Now we have the book of Hebrews chapter 9, verse 15. It says, for this reason, Hamashiach is the mediator of a new covenant. You see that? So this is proving that, those people believing in the Holy Trinity, that, Yahawashai is God, and you know, God is the Holy Spirit, and God is Jesus Christ. You know, they don't believe on it. They claim they believe on the Son, that they believe that Jesus is God, but that is the case. It's proven that we have a mediator. That Yahawashai is the mediator, man. Right? No, you can't get through. You can't get through to Yahweh unless you go through Yahawashai. He is the mediator. He's the one that speaks on our behalf. You know, he makes intercession for us. He is like our lawyer. Right? So let's continue on verse 15. You read that in Hebrews chapter 7, verse 24, I believe. Hebrews chapter 9, verses 15 again, it says, for this reason, Hamashiach is the mediator of a new covenant. You see? So the way we're gonna get to the new covenant is through Yahawashai when he returns. We're not going through the new covenant right now. Right now we're going through a period called the grace period, not the new covenant. That those who are called may receive the promise, the eternal inheritance, now that he has died as a ransom to set free from the sins committed under the first covenant. You see? So that's Yahawashai, man. Like I said, he took the blood for his trauma so we can have another chance at this right here, proving that he's the mediator. First Timothy, for a precept, verse 15, 1 Timothy chapter 2, verse 5, and it says, for there is only one power and one mediator who can reconcile Yahweh and humanity, the man Yahawashai HaMashiach. You see? Another precept, again, like I said, Hebrews chapter 7, verse 22 to 25, proving again he is the mediator. Because of this oath, Yahawashai is the one who guarantees this better covenant with Yahweh. You see, so we're going to have that new covenant is going to come through Yahawashai, not Jesus Christ, not Yahweh, not Yahshua, but through Yahawashai. That's why the Lord had to scrap the old covenant, because they wasn't doing it right, man. They was taking advantage of it and manipulating the system. So the Lord said, all right, I'm going to do something better for you fools. And that's why he sent his only begotten son to give us another chance. But the 2/3, they're still, you know, going off that new covenant, still living the ways of the world, still believing all these lies and philosophies. They do, man. They're going to get killed right along with this place. Again, back to Hebrews chapter 7, verse 23. And it says, there are many high priests under the old system, for death prevented them from remaining in office. See, they didn't have that power. See, they weren't chosen. It says, for that prevented them from remaining in office. Verse 24. But because Yahawashai lives forever, his priesthood lasts forever. See that? Verse 25. Therefore, he is able once and forever to save those who come to Yahweh through him. So again, in order to go through Yahweh, in order to get through the kingdom, in order to get to the new covenant, it all goes through Yahawashai. That's what I'm saying. It's all about Yahawashai, man. You know, all about Yahawashai, the elect, everything, man. Verse 25 again, it says, therefore, he is able once and forever to save those who come to Yahweh through him. He lives forever to intercede with Yahweh on their behalf. So like I said, Yahawashai is like a lawyer. You know, he's up there in the heavens speaking on our behalf, man. You know, so Yahawashai is giving us the ability to lock in and do it the right way. You know, separate from this place more and more. You know, cleanse ourselves more and more, cleanse our mindset more and more. You know what I'm saying? And we're able to do it the right way without the penalty of the law. Right? It's like being in school, right? It might be a bad analogy, but Lord willing, this edify. Lord willing, you know what I'm saying? I can make it make sense. It's like you in school, right? And then every time you fail a test, God damn.
Hey, sorry for yelling at you. I didn't realize you were reading the Bible.
Oh, it's all good, bro. I don't take it personal.
My bad. I didn't realize you were reading the Bible. I was like, man, I feel fucking terrible. I'm sorry.
That's all good, G.
What are you reading though? Like what verses?
Right now, just going through Hebrews chapter 9. You know, just reading about, you know, y'all call him Jesus, but we call him Yahawashai.
Yeah,
about how he brings in, you know, the new covenant.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
Do you come out here like every weekend or?
Pretty much for the most part, either Saturdays or Sundays.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Let's just have mine listen then, because I'm kind of curious now. Is that like a live?
Yeah, it's not live. I just recorded it and posted it on my YouTube channel.
Sorry.
Good, bro. I don't take shit personally. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I thought you were like just like reading something random, and I was like, that's the Bible. I can see it. Now I felt so bad. Like,
that's all good, bro.
Like I try to be Christian. That's not very Christian of me to do that.
Yeah. It's all good, G.
Yeah. Got a Bible verse for the day for me, or?
Bible verse for the day? Not right now. I'm in the midst of doing this lesson, but you know, you come back again, I'll be able to give you something else.
All right, I'll try to come by time next week.
For sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Nice meeting you, sir.
Nice meeting you too. You too. What's up? All right. It's all good, bro.
How's it going?
All right.
Yeah. What are you doing?
Just reading the Bible, going through a lesson.
Oh, hell yeah.
What's your YouTube channel?
It's called Yasharala 144.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, if you can remember that, you can look it up.
Sounds good.
Yep, y'all take care. Yep, you too, yep. All right, back to what I was saying. Basically, go through my notes. Oh yeah. So basically, you know, it's like an analogy. Like I said, I'm hoping it's a good one. But it's like, where I was at, we're gonna read again. Where I was going into how Yahawashi is the mediator for us to get through Yahweh and to get to the kingdom and to get to the new covenant. Yahawashi is the mediator. You know what I'm saying? So, in order for they threw me off with that bullshit. See, Yahawashi, you know, they had made this nigga come and apologize after he had fucking, you know, screaming, and he came and apologized, and not knowing I had the Bible in my hand, but not knowing I should have gave him a scripture of their ass going into captivity. But I feel like going to that shit today. They know what time it is. But anyway, again, how I was saying how Yahawashi is the mediator. Like I said, I was reading Hebrews chapter 7, verse 22 to 25, how Yahawashi is the mediator to get through Yahweh, to get through the kingdom, and to receive salvation, and to get through that new covenant. It all goes through Yahawashi. And so, like I said, when Yahawashi giving us this grace period, it's giving us the ability to lock in. It's giving us the ability to you know, lock in more and more, you know, keep our mind further away from it, get away from this place more and more, you know, and to do what is right to the best of our abilities. And like I said, and to lock in, it's like, and he also saved us from the ability of the law. Because like I said, back in the day, Yahweh was putting the people deaf on spot, right? So again, this analogy I was using, it's like you in school, right? And every time you fail a test, you know, it's death, right? So every time you fail a quiz, death. Every time you miss bringing your school books, death. Every time you fail a class, death. You see, that would drive us fucking crazy, man. None of us will be able to pass, because the whole time we'll be thinking about, if we fuck up, the Lord gonna kill us. You see, so right now, how it's not going through this grace period, it's giving us the ability to get it right this time, man. You know, that's why it's so inevitable. You know, it's so inevitable to believe and trust in Yahawashi, because he's giving us another chance. You know, we got the liberty to have and the freedom to turn back, trust in him, and live right this time, man. Right? Because us trusting in anything else is gonna lead to automatic death. Right? So like I said, so how can you focus on school if it's gonna be nothing but death, man? You know what I'm saying? So that's what I'm saying. Yahawashi saved us from the ability, from what saved us. We can do right without the penalty of the law, what I was trying to say. You know what I'm saying? So he saved us from the law, even though we still have to follow the law to the best of our abilities, you know, and we don't, you know, choose the laws to live by full every day, because like I said, the laws can't, you know, it can't justify us, because none of us can keep the laws 100% every day, all day. We in the flesh, right? So let's continue on verse 16. Again, verse 16, it says, in this case of a will, it is necessary to prove the death of those who made it, because a will is enforced only when someone has died. It never takes effect while the one who made it is living. You see that? And that's Yahawashi. You know, he got his will already, because he made his body live a sacrifice. He's going through the trouble. He's going through the affliction. He came down here to humble himself. He came down here, did his doing, and now he's in that high power seat. So he received his will by making his body live a sacrifice and receiving that power seat. And so now, in order for us to get the will, we have to go through the same thing. You know, our affliction is light. Yahawashi took the blood for his trauma for us to have another chance at this, man. So now we out here, we out here making our body live a sacrifice for him with all sincerity, due diligence, you know what I'm saying, and making our body live a sacrifice. And we trying to get our will, which is that everlasting salvation, to be joint heirs with Yahawashi, to be right next to him, ruling on this earth for 1,000 years with Yahawashi. Unlimited amounts of information, unlimited amounts of resources, peace and prosperity. Everything that our eyes can see, everything that our minds can imagine, the Lord is going to bless us with abundance of everything that we can even imagine, man, and even more. Right? So we gonna have our time to go through that will, man. It's like we're gonna have our time to get to that will, which we going through right now. You know, we're going through our affliction, and Yahawashi, like I said, gave us a way to follow that roadmap. He gave us the blueprint, right? So now we're gonna read 17 through 23, which is pretty much the first Exodus. So let's go verse 17. It says, because, again, Hebrews chapter 9, verse 17, it says, because a will is enforced only when somebody has died, it never takes effect And too, you know, them Edomites coming up here, man, apologizing. That shit doesn't it don't bother us because they're not doing it for us. They're doing it to Yahawashi, and Yahawashi gonna have some story for their ass. So you ain't even gotta say much or entertain these guys, man. Hey, you keep it cordial, have a good day, peace. You tolerate them like they tolerate our ass, right? You know, come up here being funny and shit. It's all right. The Lord is gonna handle all that though. You know, he felt bad because you know, being assholes and shit. They can't help themselves. You know, it's in the spirit. Verse 17 again, Hebrews chapter 9, verse 17, and it says, because a will is enforced only when somebody has died, it never takes effect while the one made is living. This is why even the first covenant was not put into effect without blood. When Moses had proclaimed every covenant of the law to all the people, he took the blood of calves together with water, scarlet wool, branches, hyssop, and sprinkled the scroll and all the people. Verse 20, he said, this is the blood of the covenant which Yahweh had commanded to you to keep. In the same way, he sprinkled with the blood of both tabernacle and everything used in his ceremonies. In fact, the law requires that nearly everything he cleansed with blood, and without the shedding of the blood, there is no forgiveness. So that was all Exodus, the first Exodus, chapter 24, verses 6 through 8. All right, so we're going to continue this precept I got. Now we're going to continue on 23 real quick. Here's verse 20. We're going to read 23 again. It says, it is necessary for the copies of the heavenly things to be purified with these sacrifices, but the heavenly things themselves with better sacrifices than these. You see, like you said, Yahawashi is at the right hand. You know, here's the high priest that died, and you know, a lot of high priests that died and didn't get that position of honor. Right? Yahawashi was given a power seat. You know, the Lord only came down to vouch for his son Yahawashi and nobody else, man. So let's continue on 24. Hebrews chapter 9, verse 24. And it says, for Hamashiach did not enter a man-made sanctuary, that was only a copy of the true one, and entered the heaven itself, not to appear for us in Yahweh's presence, nor did he enter the heaven to offer himself again and again, the way the high priest entered the most holy. And I got a precept for verse 24. And my light going down. Verse 24, and it says, Hebrews chapter 8, verses 2 through 8, and it says, there he ministers in the heavenly tabernacle, a true place of worship that was built by the Lord and not by human hands. And that goes to show you that the Lord is not dwelling in these churches. These churches are very scandalous, they're very wicked, and they're nothing but liars and hypocrites. Like I said, they turn up Monday through Saturday, you know, want to sin all week, and then on Sunday, you know, they want to, try to be the best person they can be, and just do that for one day. And that's what Christians believe, man. You know, they believe that they covered by the blood of Jesus. Oh, I'm saved. What the fuck is you saved from? Bitch, you could get killed today. You could catch a disease. You could catch a straight bullet today. You can get hit by a car and die today. You can catch a disease today and die 6 months later. What the fuck are you saved from? Right? And that's what these Christians think, man. We ain't saved from shit right now. You know, we got the hedge of protection, the elect. Right? But you Christians who think y'all saved, y'all ain't saved from a goddamn thing. Because when them nukes come, y'all ass getting destroyed, man, and y'all gonna get put out in that lake of fire. Right? So again, a precept for Hebrews chapter 9, verse 24. Hebrews chapter 8, verse 2 through 8. And it says, the ministries in the heavenly tabernacle, the true place of worship that was built by the Lord and not by human hands. And since every high priest is required to offer gifts and sacrifices, our high priest must make an offering too. If we were here on earth, he would not have been a priest, since they already knew the priests who offered the gifts required by law. It said they serve in a system of worship that is only a copy, a shadow of the real one in heaven, which is Yahawashi. So everything they was doing beforehand was a shadow, was a copy of what the Lord already did. Right? For when Moses was getting ready to build the tabernacle, Yahweh gave him a warning. Be sure that you make everything according to the pattern I have shown you here on the mountain. But now Yahawashi, our high priest, has given a ministry that is far superior to the old priesthood, for he is the one who mediates for us a far better covenant with Yahweh. You see that? Again, everything goes to Yahawashi. The new covenant, salvation, the Father, Yahweh, everything goes to Yahawashi. The kingdom, all of that goes through Yahawashi. Right here, verse 7, it says, if the covenant had been faultless, there would have been no need for a second covenant to replace it. But when Yahawashi found fault with the people, he said, the days are coming, said the About YAHAWASHI, when I'll make a new covenant with the people of Israel and Judah. You see that? Proving that the whole world cannot be saved. Only the nation of Israel. The Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, man, the whole world cannot be saved, man. Period. Nobody is thinking about that shit. Nobody is thinking about these heathen nations getting beamed up in the chairs with us. No way in fucking hell. It's telling you right here in the New Testament that he only made a covenant with us, the nation of Israel. Right? Let's get verse 25 again. Again, verse 25, it says, Hebrews chapter 9, verse 25, nor did he enter heaven to offer himself again and again, the way the high priest entered the most holy place every year with a blood that is not his own. You see, so once he died for us, he cleansed us from sin, man. You know what I'm saying? The ones that believe we don't need an animal sacrifice no more. You know, we have YAHAWASHI. You know what I'm saying? We ain't gotta go kill a goat and kill a lamb and do all those things. It all goes through YAHAWASHI now. He made his body a living sacrifice. YAHAWASHI way is more effective. You know what I'm saying? We can't manipulate the system like we did the first one. Right? Let's go John 15:3. Now you are clean through the word which I have spoken unto you. Cleanses us inwardly. And who is the word? That's YAHAWASHI. Right? Let's go to 26. It says, Hebrews chapter 9, verse 26. It says, when Hamashiach would have had to suffer for many times since the creation of the world, but now he has appeared once and for all at the end of the ages to do away with sin by the sacrifice of himself. You see? So let's grab another precept. Hebrews again, chapter 7, verse 27 to 28. It says, unlike those other high priests who did not need to offer sacrifices every day, he does not need to offer sacrifices every day. It says they did this for their own sins first, and then the sins he did this. It's like, let's read that over. I'm reading too damn fast. Hebrews chapter 7, verse 27 to 28. Again, it says, unlike those other high priests, he does not need to offer sacrifices every day. They did this for their own sins first, then for the sins of the people. But YAHAWASHI did this once and for all when he offered himself as a sacrifice for the people's sins. Verse 28, the law appointed high priests who are limited by human weakness, which is not YAHAWASHI, because, like I said, he was not tainted or contaminated by the law before. He was not defiled by the old system. It says, verse 28, the law appointed the high priests who were limited by human weakness, but after the law was given, Yahweh appointed his son with an oath, and his son has been made the perfect high priest forever. See that? So YAHAWASHI is the perfect high priest. And like I said, the only way we get through the kingdom, the only way we can see salvation, the only way we get through the Father, the only way we can get through the new covenant is through YAHAWASHI. The only way we get that true cleansing is through YAHAWASHI. Nobody else, man. Right, so let's read again. Let's continue. Almost done here. We're going to go back to Hebrews chapter 9. Now we are at 27. It says, just as a man is destined to die once, and after that once a judgment, so Hamashiach sacrificed once to take away the sins of people, and he will appear a second time, not to bear sin, but to bring salvation to those who are waiting for him. You see that? That's the elect. This time when he comes back, he's coming back to wreak havoc. He's coming back to save our people and to wreak havoc, and that's that perfect balance. Perfect balance. While the nukes are coming down, we're going to be getting beamed up. And that's the perfect balance of the Lord, man. Right, so let's grab a precept for verse 28. Titus chapter 2, verse 12 to 13 is out of NLT, and it says, and we are instructed to turn from godless living and sinful pleasures. You know, because that's what 2/3 of us are doing every day, man. You know what I'm saying? We walk around every day just trying to please our flesh all goddamn day with drugs or a porn addiction or food or whatever pleases us. We walk around all goddamn day trying to please our flesh, man. Right? So again, Titus chapter 2, verse 12 to 13 NLT. And we are instructed to turn from godless living and sinful pleasures. We should live in this evil world with wisdom, righteous, and devotion to Yahweh, while we look forward with hope to that wonderful day when the glory of our great God and Savior, YAHAWASHI HaMashiach, will be revealed. You see that? Because the Lord is coming back with great wrath and glory, because his name is not ringing down here on this earth. People's playing on this top, still calling on Jesus Christ, claiming that we in the new covenant, preaching that the mark of the beast is sin, or preaching that the mark of the beast is sleeping with a white woman, or preaching that, hey, if you get the mark of the beast of your left hand, you can live. You know, it's not the same as the other state, but no, you get that mark of the beast at all. Any tip from the government, your ass is grass, man. Right? So when he comes here, he's not only coming here for his elect, but he's coming also to make his name ring on earth, to get that glory, because people are trying to take away his glory by playing on his name, by disrespecting his name. right? So he's coming back with great wrath and power to tear down these nations, destroy the 2/3, and destroy public enemy number 1, which is Esau, Edom, the so-called white man. And another last precept of the day from verse 28, 1 Peter chapter 2, verses 21 to 24 NLT, it says, "For Yahweh called you to do good, even if it means suffering. Just as Hamashiach suffered for you, he is an example, and you must follow his steps." So we got to bear and carry our own cross. We got to follow our own. We got to follow the steps of Yahawashi. That's what they say. Be more like Yahawashi each day. Put off that old man. Put off the old way of thinking. Apply wisdom. Apply discipline. Apply a new way of thinking, man. You know, and keep that in your everyday walk. Right? Practice what you preach. You know, you got to be the same way you on camera. You got to be the same way off camera. The Lord is going to judge those who teach his word more harshly than he's going to judge anybody else. Because we his messengers, man. And we got to make sure we're teaching this 100% truth. So all you prophets, false-ass prophets out here that's preaching we're in the new covenant, you know, preaching on Jesus Christ or Yahweh, Yeshua, preaching that the other nations could be saved, preaching that John the Baptist fell out the truth, preaching that the letters of Paul is not of Yahawashi, preaching that Yahawashi is an idol, y'all ass is going to get destroyed, man, and y'all ass is going to have to answer to Yahawashi when he returns, man. So y'all, when y'all calling all those false names, the Lord is going to look right past you. You're going to get hit with them nukes. Let's continue on that precept. Again, 2 Peter chapter 2, verse 21-24. Again, it says, "For Yahweh called you to do good, even if it means suffering." Right now we suffer, we're going through a light affliction. Just as Hamashiach suffered for you, see, we're making our body living sacrifice because the Lord made his body living sacrifice. He is your example. See, he's given us the blueprint on how to do it. And you must follow his footsteps. Verse 22. "He never sinned, nor he deceived anyone. He did not retaliate when he was assaulted, nor threatened revenge when he suffered. He left his case in the hands of Yahweh, who always judges fairly." See that? That's that balance. He personally carried our sins on his body on the cross so we could be dead in sin and live for what is right. By his wounds we are healed. So again, Yahweh took the blunt force trauma so we can have another chance at this, man. So we can go through this grace period and do it right this time. That's what I'm saying. It's all about Yahweh. If your foundation is built on Jesus Christ, your foundation is trusting on Esau, Edom, if your foundation is trusting in yourself, or trusting in America, trusting in the military might, trusting in Yahweh, Yeshua, Allah, your ass is grass, man, and your ass is going to get destroyed if you don't turn around and repent. Period, man. And so that was pretty much it for today. You know, all about Yahweh, I think part 10 or part 11, whatever, I go and see it posted up. So I truly hope this lesson was edifying. Again, when to face the east, when to give all praise, honor, glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Wakakwadash. Again, all praise and double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone, who brought out this truth many, many years ago, still to today preaching this truth. Truly hope this lesson was edifying, Lord willing. Shalom.